the people who took down big animals with like atlatls back in the ancient times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saber-toothed tigers. Those are scary.
Were we even
Yeah.
alive at the same time as saber-toothed tigers?
Yeah.
Smilodon. Yes, we were.
Yeah.
That they think that. So I was taught growing up that all the megafauna died because of the changing climate, but now I think a lot of that megafauna, the giant animals, died because of us, that we hunted them to extinction.
Are animals fauna?
Yeah. Flora,
Yeah.
floral. is
Oh,
plants.
that's what I'm mixing up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And so there was this one animal, this gigantic armadillo that used to live, and they think that we hunted those in particular to extinction because we were living in their shells. That's how big they were. We would kill these. Their shells were big enough to live in.
That's what doesn't make sense. Like elephants.
Today I saw the bones of a 600,000-year-old woolly mammoth.
That's cool.
Oh, in person.
Yeah, I was in town. There was a little museum, and I was like, I can't not walk in the museum. Like, what is in the Shoshone, California museum? I have to see it. Like, I had just seen the Bonnie and Clyde car and got like super into it. I was watching Bonnie and Clyde movies last night. I saw The Highwaymen with Kevin Costner. I'm reading the Bonnie and Clyde Wikipedia, like getting all into Bonnie. I'm like a Bonnie and Clyde aficionado now.
I was watching one of those things about our ancestors, and they were talking about how we competed with the Neanderthals, and how they suggested that they were big and powerful enough to kind of take on a lot of those giant animals on their own. Like just 3 or 4 of them would just jump a rhino and just beat its ass with clubs and spears. And if it hit them, they could take it. They were just that big and strong. But there were more of us, and we were more cooperative. And we also, because they were so big and bulky, they didn't make the tech tree leap to ranged weaponry.
That's a big leap. Yeah.
So we went to atlatls.
Got to invest that 400 gold into the Bronze Age, bro.
Got to get those atlatls and those slings.
Go up to feudal.
Yeah.
And then because obviously we wanted to take on game at a range.
What's an atlatl? You mentioned it a few times today. How does it work?
Atlatls are cool. So it's a spear throwing device, and the spear is kind of part of it. It's a mechanism, but there's this handle that you hold, and in the back it's got sort of a notch that holds the spear. The spear will have a corresponding notch, and you're able to flick it and literally throw a spear. It's not exactly a spear; it's more of a bolt or a javelin type thing, but twice as far as a man can throw them with his arm. Yeah,
I get it. Yeah. So I can throw a ball so fast, but if I have like a lacrosse stick or something, I can
exactly. Yeah. I've seen people use them.
A perfect hunting weapon would be like a like back in those days would just be like one of those little fucking things that you throw the tennis ball with. You know, just put rocks in it, just start pegging it and shit.
I mean, that's how our ancestors like that was step one, right? Throwing rocks and sticks. That would be enough to fuck up a pheasant every now and then, or knock a rabbit down. Like I bet if your life depended on it,
turkey or something with a rock.
Of course,
you could like
not
from
a turkey, but
if it's slow and you're lucky.
No, not a turkey in particular, but you know, rabbits
from a height.
Yeah,
there's a lot of animals.
I'd end up killing my cave wife or something. I'd throw a rock and just hit her in the back of the fucking head or some shit.
Yeah, what are they gonna do? Put you in jail?
There's a lot of animals. There's a lot of animals that their first defense mechanism is to freeze and try to not move and be like, does he see me? Does he see me? And that works just fine as long as you don't have something to throw at him, you know. But all the things that do that would have gotten fucked up by our ancestors that figured out rocks and sticks.
Yeah. And then like after the atlatl, like the bow and arrow must have been like, oh Jesus, like everyone's blown away.
Yeah, it's interesting. The spear was the best melee weapon for all time until then the gun happened. Like they started out with the Neanderthals started out and they're like, oh, spear, this is it. And we never really got any better than a spear. Like I think that like when they look at the medieval combat, like even the height of like 14th, 15th, 16th century.
Oh, we lost you, Kyle. We lost you after 16th century. And I want to know because I'm curious about this, about what the facts are.
1, 2, 3.
You're good. Yes, 16th century.
Interesting.
Why isn't he talking? We hear you. Oh, he doesn't hear us.
Fuck. We
Oh,
hear
fuck, can't hear
you.
anything.
We hear you.
Well, I know you can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Okay, he gets it. He gets it.
We don't need
Can't hear me either.
you don't need to hear me to tell your story. Tell your
Guys,
story.
I'm gonna make up the rest of his story. So,
Yeah.
I love this. Yes,
the
please.
spear
Spaceman
from the inception of weaponry up until the 14th, 15th, 16th century was seen as the penultimate weapon, is what Kyle would say incorrectly. The spear was you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about how the spear was the best weapon from Stone Age until the 16th
The gun.
century.
Until the gun. It was the best weapon because
That's very
nothing beat the
situational,
spear.
right? What,
Nothing
depending
Not
on
even a
spear.
bow and arrow.
No, I'm talking about melee weapons. Like
Oh,
bow and arrow,
okay.
bow and arrow beats all the melee weapons.
It's like-
Fuck you.
The-
Oh, does it hurt? Oh, it's hard to catch me now,
I
isn't
really
it?
like that.
I got like 30 of them.
the evolution of armor. Like if you
Oh, that's
watch
cool.
what people wore, like because you had like no armor, and then everyone started using swords because swords were like, yeah, this is the dope thing. Like we can now make dope swords. And then they're like, yeah, okay, let's wear like plate armor. This will work. And then they're like, oh well, swords aren't really good against that, so let's start using different shit. And then they're like, oh, we use chainmail. And then they invented the crossbow, and then they're like, okay, none of this armor is fucking useful at all, so let's just not wear armor. And then it just like went from wearing like fucking heaps of shit to just wearing nothing. And then now we're like, oh, now we have armor.
I think in like the like those like 1500s pictures, stuff like warhammers and like mauls were more popular because you couldn't just punch through the plate mail, so they would just like hit you with a fucking hammer with a spike on the end and like cave your chest cavity in.
My guess would be that like what we're talking about is the richest of the rich, the knights and the badasses on the battlefield. If you took like a 14th, 15th, 16th century battlefield and you took a census out there of all the bodies, I bet most of them got poked with a spear, and then right below that they got hit in the head with a stick, and then right below that they got like ran over by a horse, and like all the way at the bottom was those 18 knights who got hit with war hammers.
Well, I mean, that makes sense though, because like it's not like every dude was walking around with plate armor. That was
Exactly,
like a status thing. So like most of them were walking around in jerkins, just getting fucked up by arrows that were, like bodkin arrows that are sharper.
I think that depends on the time and like how much money the army had though, because like say like Agincourt, like in the 1600s when England invaded France, like they talked about having like thousands of armored like fucking men, and like the French had fuckloads and they were on horseback, and then they got fucked up because the British were like, well, we got heaps of longbows, but they didn't have shitloads of money, so they were like, yeah, we'll just use fuckloads of longbows. So
the Britons were very good with archery.
What was the famous battle where the England's invading France, their king is invading France, and they have the big battle where they goad the French,
right?
They goad the French into coming through the muddy field.
That's Agincourt. That's a battle of Agincourt.
That's the one that's the subject of that movie on Netflix. I think it's just called The King.
The King,
They get a little creative with the history, but not too far. It's not like it's William Wallace out there all of a sudden. Like
nah.
There's a few things that just didn't happen, but apparently, like how muddy and sticky that field was, is the quagmire of death it created was pretty cool. And but yeah, they basically goaded the French into charging across a really muddy field into archer fire coming from three directions.
I think Robert the Bruce did that as well to the King of England. At some stage during the Scottish independence, they like the battle that sort of turned the tide was essentially they had some kind of bog or like mire, and then they goaded them into coming down this like specific road where it was like a bog on either side, and then they had like fucking heaps of those like dug into the ground spears.
I didn't see that in the movie.
Yeah,
they did do that in the movie.
They did do the thing where they're like, "Oh,
no! This isn't in Brave. This isn't in Braveheart. This is
then it didn't happen."
All right, well, then I'll need Mel to sign off on it for me.
Robert the Bruce was like the guy after he like sort of unified England after William Wallace died. But unified Scotland after William Wallace died. They had like this
the movie
battle.
ends
He
in
also
William
has a
Wallace.
movie on Netflix, but and they have Chris
Yeah.
Pine play him,
I mean,
and he hangs dong.
yeah, he does. He does hang
does
on.
hang
I'm gonna
dong.
be
He does
honest.
hang
I don't like Chris Pine.
Wait,
I don't
what movie
know
is
why.
this?
I just watched that motherfucker, and I'm just like, you are
It's
so
called, like,
boring.
It's called
Who's
like
Chris
the
Pine?
Bandit King or something
The Outlaw
like that.
King. It is.
The Outlaw King, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Chris
came
Pine
out.
is awesome.
I'm
I know
just
who
not a
this guy is.
fan. I don't know why.
I'm a
I
He
just
likes
not
the
a fan.
Star Trek movies.
Star Trek is
Yeah.
so good.
Oh no, I do like him in Star Trek, but everything else he just fucking blows. Like he's just like
He plays
no
a great
emotion.
Kirk.
I
He
just
plays
don't
a
think
great
he has
Kirk.
any emotion.
You're describing a guy who hangs dong and blows. I want to see this movie.
I thought he was pretty good in the Outlaw King. It was okay.
He's
Robert
all right,
the
but
Bruce
I'm not
is the
like
one
I'm not gonna
who.
write a letter to my dad and tell him about it. Like he's not that fucking good. Like,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, Netflix does that a lot. They have a lot of like, it's okay. I don't know.